All right, let's kick off another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling, well, a pretty fascinating phenomenon.
Oh,
It's in the world of Everquest emulators.
okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so it's a server
Uh-huh.
called the Hero's Journey.
Okay. I've heard whispers about this one. What's so special about it?
Well, it's breaking records, like tons of new players.
Wow.
And it's really kind of changing how people think about classic EverQuest.
Yeah, I can see why that'd be worth a deep dive.
Right. So we're going to look at an interview with the server's developers
Okay.
on this YouTube channel called DramaQuest.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
And then we'll also be pulling in some articles.
Right, so getting the full picture.
Exactly. Analyzing all this stuff.
Like what kind of stuff?
Like its features, history, community, all that jazz.
Sounds comprehensive.
Yeah. So are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it. I'm curious to hear what's got everyone so hooked.
Me too. Yeah. So I think what's really capturing people's attention is that it goes beyond just recreating the old EverQuest.
So it's not just a nostalgia trip.
No. It introduces, like, genuinely new ideas.
Interesting.
But it still stays true to the original game.
Ooh, a delicate balance. Hard to pull off.
Yeah.
So tell me about the masterminds behind this. Who are these developers?
All right, so we've got Aporia and Catapultam. Catapultam, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, they call them CATA for short.
Okay, Kata. Got it.
But their journeys to EverQuest are pretty different, actually.
Oh, how so?
Well, Aporia's is like, a classic MMO origin story.
Lay it on me. I love a good origin story.
Okay, so picture this. He's just a kid playing baseball.
Okay, all-American kid.
Yeah, totally. And he overhears this teammate
Uh-huh.
talking about Final Fantasy, right? This cool kid teammate.
Gotta impress the cool kid.
I know, right? And so that actually leads him to EverQuest.
Oh, wow. So Final Fantasy was just the gateway drug.
Exactly. And then they end up playing all night.
Totally. And Aporia gets so hooked
Yeah.
that his parents actually upgrade his computer.
Wow. Dedicated parents.
Right. And they get him a second phone line just for
A
EverQuest.
second phone line. Seriously. That's hardcore. We're talking dial-up days here, right?
Yeah, full-on dial-up.
Yeah.
Man, that really takes me back. It's amazing how these chance encounters can, like, spark these lasting passions.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many future game developers got their start just like that. Just, huddled around a computer screen late at night, completely absorbed.
Totally. But what about Kata?
Yeah, what about the other half of this duo?
So his path is a bit different.
Not the cool kid on the baseball team story.
No, not quite. It's more about this love of problem solving, I think, and systems.
Okay, so more of a technical mind.
Yeah, and he got into server development because I think it just really satisfied that side of him,
I can see that. It's like a giant complex puzzle, right? Building a game world and all the systems that make it tick.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of fascinating, right, how these, like, totally different backgrounds
Uh-huh.
highlight the skills needed to make something special.
Yeah, you need the creative vision and the technical expertise. Two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And they seem to have found, like, the perfect balance with the hero's journey.
So what about the game itself? What's making it so popular?
Well, the numbers are, like, mind-blowing.
Okay, give me the stats.
They hit a peak of 2,682 players.
Wow, that's huge.
Right. And that's even more than some of the, like, long-standing favorites.
You're talking like Project 1999, Project Quorum. Right. Those are big names in the EverQuest emulator scene.
Exactly. And get this, they're attracting like 50 to 100 new players every day.
Every day. That's some serious sustained growth. Especially in the world of emulators. There's got to be something special going on there.
Right. So what's the secret sauce? What's drawing people in?
Well, from what I've heard, a lot of it comes down to one groundbreaking feature, multi-classing.
Okay, so for our listeners who might not be hardcore EverQuest vets.
Right. Not everyone spent years in NORAD.
Yeah, can you break down what multi-classing even means?
Absolutely. So it means you can combine like elements of different character classes.
Okay.
So you can blend get this, three of EverQuest's original classes
Wow.
into one super character.
That's crazy.
It is. And that adds up to over 500 possible combinations.
No way. 500.
Yeah. So you can imagine the level of like customization and strategic depth it brings to the game. It's huge.
So instead of being stuck with like one class, you get to create these hybrid characters with abilities from like multiple classes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like taking the best of all worlds.
So, like, you could have a paladin
Uh-huh.
who can heal like a shaman
Totally.
and then also shoot arrows like a ranger.
Yep. That's the kind of craziness we're talking about. That's a whole new way to play EverQuest. But wouldn't that create some crazy balance issues? I mean, some combinations have got to be way more powerful than others, right? That's what's so clever about how they designed it. It's all about synergy and exploring unique play styles. No single combination is, like, inherently overpowered.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about creating a character that can do everything.
Right. It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
It's about finding those interesting interactions between abilities from different classes.
Got it. So give me an example.
Okay, so imagine a Shadow Knight.
Okay. Edgy. I like it.
Right. But this Shadow Knight can sneak around like a rogue, all stealthy, and then bam, they suddenly bust out with enchanter buffs, boosting their allies.
That's amazing. It totally changes how you think about those classes and how they can work together.
Exactly. It adds a whole new layer of strategy and depth to the gameplay.
That's so cool. It really shakes up the traditional EverQuest class system, but it still preserves like the core elements that people love, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And what's really interesting to me is that it speaks to this growing desire, in MMOs for more flexible character development.
Right. It's not just about min-maxing and finding the most OP builds anymore.
Exactly. It's about creating a character that truly reflects your unique play style and your vision.
And what I love about the hero's journey is that it's designed to be super enjoyable even if you're, playing solo or just with one other person.
Yeah. You can literally tackle the entire game with just you and a friend, even the toughest raid content.
Whoa, really? That's wild.
Yeah,
Especially for people who don't have a ton of time for massive raid groups.
exactly. It makes EverQuest so much more accessible for busy adults or anyone who just prefers a more relaxed pace.
That's fantastic. It makes me want to jump back into EverQuest right now. But it also makes me wonder how solo progression even works in a game that was originally designed for groups.
It's a good question. And that's what makes the server so fascinating, I think. It really challenges those old assumptions we have about MMOs.
So are you saying they've completely abandoned group play?
No, not at all. They've actually designed custom raid content that's specifically balanced for full groups.
Oh, so they've got something for everyone.
Exactly. Whether you prefer to go it alone, team up with a friend, or rally a full raid group, the hero's journey has you covered.
That's amazing. They really thought of everything. But wait, there's more, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even touched on all the quality of life features they've packed into the hero's journey.
Okay, you're killing me. Spill the beans. What kind of quality of life stuff are we talking about?
All right. All right. Picture this. You start at level 1.
Okay, fresh-faced adventurer.
Exactly. And boom, you immediately have access to a huge selection of AA abilities.
Whoa, wait. Those special skills you usually have to grind forever to unlock.
The very same.
That's incredible. So you can start customizing your character from day one.
You got it. And get this, any AA experience your main character earns is shared with your alts.
Oh, that's genius. So I don't have to start from scratch every time I want to try a new multi-class combo.
Nope. It encourages experimentation and makes the whole multi-classing system even more fun and accessible.
Wow, they really thought of everything. It's like they took one of the most tedious aspects of EverQuest and turned it into, a strength.
Exactly. And that's just the beginning. They've also incorporated a lot of popular features from third-party tools like MQ2.
Oh, you mean like those tools that some players use to automate tasks and stuff?
The very same.
Oh.
But they've done it in a way that doesn't allow for any exploits or unfair advantages, so you get the convenience and streamlined gameplay, but it's all fair and square.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me some examples. What kind of features are we talking about?
Well, for starters, you get permanent buffs for you and your group, so no more constant rebuffing. They've also got instanced versions of popular zones, which means less competition for resources and spawns.
Ah, I see. So it's about reducing those frustrating bottlenecks and making the game flow more smoothly.
Precisely. And get this, debuffs automatically clear at the end of combat. It keeps the action going and eliminates a lot of unnecessary downtime.
Okay, now I'm getting serious EverQuest envy.
Yeah.
This all sounds incredible. It's like they took all the potentially tedious and frustrating parts of the original game and found clever ways to streamline them.
Exactly. But without losing the core gameplay that makes EverQuest so captivating, they've struck a perfect balance, in my opinion.
It's amazing. But I'm curious, is it all just about convenience and streamlining? Did they add anything new or unique to the world itself?
Oh, they did. They added this really cool central bazaar hub that acts as a social and trading center.
Ah, so a central meeting point for players.
Exactly. And you can even use a special AA ability to quickly travel back and forth. It's super convenient.
Wow, that's awesome. It sounds like they've put a lot of thought into not just streamlining the game, but also enhancing the overall experience.
They really have. And it's not just about the big stuff. They've also added things like bigger bags, weapon ornaments, and a tiered equipment system where you can find normal, enchanted, and even legendary versions of classic items.
Wow, legendary items. That sounds amazing.
Huh.
And they also tweak some of the classes, right?
Yep. They made some significant changes to certain classes to make them more enjoyable and relevant.
Give me an example.
Well, take bards, for instance. They used to have to tediously manage their song rotations, constantly switching between songs to maximize their effects.
Yeah, I remember that. It could be a real pain.
Right. Well, now their beneficial songs automatically loop as long as they're memorized. It's a huge quality of life change that makes playing a bard much more enjoyable and allows them to really shine as support
That's
characters.
so cool. It really seems like they've thought of everything to make the game as enjoyable as possible. But tell me, how does progression work on the hero's journey? Is it the same old EverQuest leveling and rating, or did they shake things up there too?
Well, they've got this really interesting system called time-locked progression.
Unlost progression.
Yeah, it's a popular feature in EverQuest emulators where expansions are released gradually, and players need to complete specific objectives in each era to unlock the next one.
Oh, I see. So it's like a community-driven journey through the history of EverQuest.
Exactly. It's like reliving those early days when everything was new and exciting.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It creates this shared sense of discovery and accomplishment. But what are these objectives? Are we talking about like massive group raids that only hardcore players can handle?
Actually, you have choices. You can either tackle classic raid bosses with a group, or if you prefer a more solo or duo approach, you can complete a set of collection quests.
That's brilliant. So it caters to different playstyles while still maintaining that sense of progression and accomplishment.
Exactly. And it encourages players to really immerse themselves in each expansion.
It's like unlocking chapters in a book. Right? You
Oh,
can't just skip to the end. You have to
yep.
experience the story along the way.
Perfect analogy. And this approach really speaks volumes about the developer's respect for EverQuest and its history. They're not just trying to recreate the game, they're curating an experience that feels both familiar and refreshingly new.
Speaking of new, I'm curious about the loot on the hero's journey. Is it all classic EverQuest gear, or have they added their own unique items? Because let's be honest, loot is a big part of the MMO experience.
Oh, they've definitely spiced things up in the loot department. They've kept the classic loot tables, but with a twist. They've introduced enchanted and legendary versions of classic items.
Oh, enchanted and legendary versions. Like imagine finding an enchanted flowing black silk sash or a legendary fungi tunic.
I know, right? It brings back memories.
Huh?
Finding one of those upgraded versions must feel amazing.
So how rare are these items? Are we talking like 1 in a million drops?
The exact drop rates are a closely guarded secret, but the developers have hinted that it's a balance between excitement and accessibility.
Okay, so rare enough to make finding one feel like a true accomplishment, but not so rare that players feel like they'll never see one.
Exactly. And here's another cool detail. These enchanted and legendary items aren't restricted to raid bosses. They can drop from any mob in the game.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So even players who prefer a more casual playstyle can stumble upon something truly special. It encourages exploration and makes every encounter feel potentially rewarding.
Precisely. And to keep things fresh and engaging, raid zones are instanced, meaning they reset every 16 hours, so there's always a reason to go back and try your luck. They've also made some interesting changes to classic weapons. For example, they've scaled up the damage of Bane weapons in the Luklin expansion.
Bane weapons, those are pretty iconic in EverQuest, right?
Yeah, they're powerful weapons that are particularly effective against certain types of enemies.
So what was the reason for scaling up their damage?
Well, it seems like they wanted to make them more viable for a wider variety of multi-class setups. It's all about creating a balanced and engaging gameplay experience where different playstyles can thrive.
It's really impressive how much thought and care they've put into every aspect of this server. They've taken the classic EverQuest formula and infused it with modern design sensibilities.
They really have, focusing on accessibility, balance, a constant sense of progression, all while staying true to the heart of what made EverQuest so special.
And that's a key point, right? The hero's journey isn't trying to be the next big thing in MMOs. It's creating a haven for players who long for a specific type of experience, one that evokes those classic EverQuest vibes, but is refined, streamlined, and tailored for a modern audience.
You nailed it. It's a testament to the power of nostalgia, but also to the potential for innovation within a beloved game world.
Absolutely. And it proves that you don't need flashy graphics or super complex systems to create a truly engaging and captivating online gaming experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about rediscovering the magic of what made a game special in the first place and then making it accessible to a new generation of players.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of making things accessible, let's talk about the community on the hero's journey. It's truly remarkable how they've managed to foster such a positive and supportive environment.
Oh yeah, that's something I'm really curious about. As we mentioned earlier, online gaming communities can be, well, let's just say less than ideal sometimes. Toxicity, drama, elitism, it can really ruin the experience. But the hero's journey seems to be the exception. How have they managed to create such a welcoming and supportive space?
It's honestly one of the most surprising and impressive things about this server, and I think it's a combination of factors. First, you have the developers themselves setting a very clear tone with their zero-tolerance policy for toxicity. Remember, they've only banned 7 players since launch.
7 players. That's unheard of in any online game, let alone an EverQuest emulator.
I know, right? It's crazy. So they've clearly attracted a certain type of player, but it's not just about strict rules. I think the server's design itself plays a role in shaping this positive community.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. By minimizing competition for resources and encouraging cooperation through features like multi-classing and duo-friendly content, they've potentially reduced the potential for conflict and negativity.
That's fascinating. So they've created a world where everyone can be a hero, whether they're playing solo, with a friend, or in a group. There's less pressure to compete, less reason for conflict, and more opportunities for collaboration and shared experiences.
Exactly. It's a really interesting idea, and it makes me think about how game design can actually influence player behavior and community dynamics. Perhaps by designing systems that encourage cooperation and reduce that kind of unnecessary competition, developers can actually create more positive and enjoyable online gaming experiences.
It's definitely something worth exploring further. But, we haven't even gotten into the nitty-gritty of how this multi-classing system works in practice. How do players actually combine the abilities of different classes? And what are some of the crazy combinations people have come up with?
That's a great question, and I think it's the perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive. Let's unravel the mysteries of multi-classing. So remember how we were talking about time-locked progression?
Yeah, where expansions are released gradually.
Exactly. So when the hero's journey launched,
Uh-huh.
it started with just like the classic EverQuest era.
Okay, so like the original game world makes sense.
Right. But then to move on to later expansion,
Like Kunark, Velius, all that.
players actually need to achieve like specific goals within each era.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about hitting a certain level.
No, it's more like a community-wide quest through EverQuest history.
That sounds like a really cool way to experience the game, like a guided tour almost.
Yeah, I think so too.
But what are these goals?
Okay, so for example, to unlock Kunark,
Mm-hmm.
you have choices, right? You can either take down like these classic raid bosses.
Okay, so like the hardcore option.
Yeah, stuff like Vox and Nagafen.
Those are some tough cookies.
They are, but if raiding isn't your thing,
Right.
you can actually complete a set of collection quests instead.
Oh, that's cool. So they're catering to different play styles.
Exactly. They're not just trying to replicate the classic EverQuest experience.
Right.
They're refining it, enhancing it, making it their own.
I like that. So it's accessible for solo players and duos.
Yep. Which totally aligns with their whole philosophy,
Yeah,
right?
of being super flexible.
Yeah.
So tell me, how does it work for the other expansions?
Okay, so to progress to Velius, for example,
Yeah.
you need to like show mastery of Kunark.
Oh, okay, I see. So it builds on itself.
Right. You can either clear all the progression content there,
Ah,
or you can complete a series of these like challenging collection quests.
that's smart. It forces players to like actually engage with each expansion, not just rush to the end.
Totally. It's like savor the journey, not just the destination, right?
Exactly. It's like those old school RPGs where you couldn't just skip ahead in the story, you had to earn it. And speaking of earning things,
Mm-hmm.
what about the loot in the hero's journey?
Oh, the loot.
Is it all just classic EverQuest stuff?
Okay, so they have the classic loot tables,
Uh-huh.
but they've added this brilliant twist.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
They introduced enchanted and legendary versions of classic items.
Whoa, seriously, like imagine finding an enchanted flowing black silk sash.
I know, right? Or a legendary fungi tunic.
Oh man, the nostalgia's hitting hard right now.
I feel it. So finding one of those upgraded versions must feel pretty amazing.
It would be epic. But how rare are they? Like, am I going to have to raid for a year straight to even get a glimpse?
Okay, so the exact drop rates.
Yeah.
They're a closely guarded secret,
Oh, come
but
on.
the developers have, hinted. It's a balance between excitement and accessibility.
So, rare enough to make it feel like a real accomplishment.
Yes, but not so rare that players get discouraged and think, I'll never get one.
That's a good approach.
Well,
Keeps the excitement going, but still gives everyone a chance. But wait, are these super rare items only found on raid bosses?
nope. And this is the coolest part. These enchanted and legendary items can drop from any mob in the game.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah.
So even if you're not a hardcore raider, you could still stumble across something amazing.
Exactly. It really encourages you to explore and makes every encounter feel like it could be, super rewarding.
That's a great design choice. It keeps the whole world feeling alive and full of possibilities. It's not just about the raids.
Exactly. And speaking of raids, the raid zones, they're actually instanced.
Instanced.
Yeah, so they reset every 16 hours, gives players a reason to, keep coming back for more.
Well, that's smart. Keeps things fresh and prevents those really long wait times for raids to reset.
Exactly. And they haven't forgotten about classic weapons either.
Ooh, what have they done with those?
Well, they've actually scaled up the damage of Bane weapons in the Luclin expansion.
Beam weapons, those are like super iconic in EverQuest, right? They're incredibly powerful, especially against specific enemy types.
Right. And it seems like they wanted to make them more viable for different multi-class setups so you can really lean into those unique combinations and still be effective.
It's all about balance and making sure everyone feels powerful no matter their play style. They've really thought of everything.
It's impressive, isn't it? The level of detail and thought they've put into every aspect of this server.
It's clear that they have a deep respect for EverQuest and its legacy, but they're not afraid to experiment and try new things.
And that's what makes the hero's journey so special. It's not just a carbon copy of the original game. It's something new and exciting.
Yeah, it's like a love letter to EverQuest, but with a modern twist. They've managed to capture that classic feel while also making it more accessible and engaging for a contemporary audience.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how you can take a beloved classic and breathe new life into it without sacrificing what made it great in the first place.
Well said. But there's one thing we haven't touched on yet that I think is crucial to the hero's journey's success: the community. We
Mhm.
talked about how online gaming can sometimes be, well, a breeding ground for toxicity, but the hero's journey seems to be different. How do they manage to create such a positive and supportive environment?
It's honestly one of the most remarkable things about this server. It's like a breath of fresh air compared to some of the more, let's say, intense communities out there.
So what's their secret? Is it just the strict rules and the low ban count? Or is there something more to it?
I think it's a combination of things. First, you have the developers setting a clear tone with their zero tolerance policy on toxicity. They've only banned 7 players since launch, which is unheard of in most online games.
It's amazing. It really shows they're serious about fostering a positive community. But it can't be just about the rules, right?
Right. I think the server's design itself actually plays a big role in shaping this positive environment.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. By minimizing competition for resources and encouraging cooperation through things like multi-classing and duo-friendly content, they've kind of reduced the potential for conflict and negativity.
Ah, I see what you mean. It's like they've created a world where everyone can be a hero, whether they're playing solo with a friend or as part of a group. There's less pressure to compete, less reason for conflict, and more opportunities to collaborate and share those cool experiences.
Exactly. And that's what I find so fascinating about the hero's journey. It makes me think about the relationship between game design and community dynamics. Maybe by designing systems that encourage cooperation and reduce that kind of unnecessary competition, developers can actually create online gaming experiences that are just more positive and more enjoyable for everyone.
It's an incredibly important topic. It's like a whole new frontier in game design, really thinking about the social impact of the systems we create. But let's bring it back to the hero's journey for a second. We've talked a lot about the overarching concepts, but I'm itching to dive into the specifics of this multi-classing system.
Yeah.
How does it actually work in practice? How do players actually combine the abilities of different classes?
Yeah.
And, what are some of the craziest combos people have come up with? I need details.
Okay, I get it. You're ready for the nitty-gritty. Let's break it down.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of this multi-classing system.
All right, let's do it.
Like, how does it actually work? Do you just, pick 3 classes and boom, you're suddenly some kind of hybrid superhero?
Well, it's surprisingly elegant, actually. At character creation, you pick your 3 classes,
Uh-huh.
and you just, boom, you have access to all their abilities, spells, even those AA skills we talked about.
Really? It's not like you have to, pick and choose a few abilities from each class.
Nope. It's the full toolkit. All 3 classes.
So, let's say, just a crazy example. I pick Paladin, Ranger, and Shaman.
Okay, interesting combo.
I could be out there, casting heals, shooting arrows, and swinging a giant two-handed sword all at the same time.
You got it. That's the beauty of it. And it gets even wilder when you start thinking about gear.
Oh, yeah.
You can equip any item that any of your chosen classes can use. So imagine a paladin decked out in chainmail, wielding a bow, and buffing their allies with shaman spells.
That's wild. I can already see the screenshots on the forums. Look at my crazy multi-class build. It's like they took the classic Everquest class system and turned it into this, giant sandbox.
Exactly. It's all about experimentation and player expression. The possibilities are endless.
And it allows players to really, lean into their preferred playstyles, right? If you want to be a melee powerhouse with some ranged backup, go for it.
Absolutely. Or maybe you prefer a more supportive role with a mix of healing and crowd control. The hero's journey gives you the freedom to create the character you want.
And we were talking earlier about how they've even made bards, a class that's often overlooked in EverQuest, more viable and fun to play.
Oh yeah, the bards are definitely singing a happier tune on the hero's journey. No more tedious song twisting. That's where you had to constantly, switch between songs to maximize their effects.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a real pain sometimes.
Well, now their beneficial songs just automatically loop.
Wow, really? That simplifies things a lot.
Big time. It's a quality of life change that makes playing a bard so much more enjoyable. They can really focus on supporting their group and, being the awesome musical force they were meant to be.
That's awesome. It sounds like they've put a lot of thought into balancing the classes and making sure, that no single multi-class combination is just completely broken.
They have. It's an ongoing process, of course, with constant monitoring, tweaking, and adjusting based on player feedback and data analysis.
So it's a living, breathing system that's constantly evolving.
I love that. It really speaks to the developer's commitment to creating a balanced and, just a really fun and engaging game world.
Absolutely. And I think the dedication is evident in everything we've talked about today, right? From the multi-classing to the time lock progression, the emphasis on community. It's clear they have a vision for what they want the hero's journey to be.
And it's not just about throwing a bunch of cool features together. It's about crafting a cohesive and polished experience that truly resonates with players.
You nailed it. And I think that's a big part of their success. They're not just trying to cash in on nostalgia. They're building something special.
And I think it's safe to say they've succeeded.
Mhm.
So for our listeners out there, what are the key takeaways here? Why should you be excited about the hero's journey?
I think the hero's journey is a shining example of how, even in a world of endless sequels and remakes and reboots, there's still room for innovation. Right, and it shows that you can take a beloved classic game and breathe new life into it without, sacrificing its soul. You can create something that feels both familiar and excitingly new.
Exactly. And more than that, it proves that online gaming doesn't have to be a toxic wasteland. With the right approach, it's totally possible to create a positive and supportive environment where players can connect and share their love for a game.
So, whether you're an EverQuest veteran looking for a fresh take on a classic, or maybe even a newcomer who's curious about this legendary MMO, the hero's journey has something truly special to offer. It's a testament to the power of creativity, community, and the enduring magic of EverQuest.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the hero's journey. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating world with us.
We had a blast.
But the conversation doesn't have to end here. We want to leave you with a question. What would your ideal EverQuest server look like? What features would you prioritize? What kind of community would you foster? Let those questions guide your own journey through the ever-evolving world of online gaming. And until next time, keep diving deep,